Canada's state broadcaster gets away with living in absolute fantasy land. As originally reported by Blacklock's reporter, CBC's television ad revenues have dropped significantly in the last 5 years. After having $90.9 million in the first 6 months, as far as ad revenue is concerned, of 2019, this marks a 53% decrease over what CBC was pulling in advertising in 2014, which means that advertising, which is the primary revenue tool for most television companies and media companies, has been slashed in half. But for CTV, for Global, this would be catastrophic. For CBC, it's merely a rounding error, given that the majority of the state broadcaster's funding comes from the state, to the tune of almost $1.3 billion each year, in fact. But a CBC executive has said that this declining ad revenue means the company needs to basically reinvent itself, and they're trying to cry poverty about this and how difficult it is, and a very stark admission that the role of CBC is not to make money. While that may be true, the role of CBC, like any other organization, state or otherwise owned, should be to run a convincing business case. And the business case for CBC just isn't there. Hence the Fantasyland charge I made at the beginning of this video. You see, CBC is unconstrained by the market realities that impact other media organizations in Canada, but nevertheless tries to compete with those very organizations. Take a look at CBC bidding on the Olympics, for example. There's no argument that the private sector couldn't adequately, or in a better way, in fact, deliver the service of airing the Olympics to people, but CBC is still competing with private companies that would love to get a piece of that action, even though regardless of whether CBC succeeds or not, it's getting that money from the government. Its existence does not depend on advertising revenue. And this is where we have to look into the cost-benefit analysis for Canadians. Not just ad revenue is going down, but viewership as well. That's the reason it's more difficult to get advertising, because fewer people are watching it. Fewer people are interested in the product, but even so, the government subsidy never goes down. It only ever goes up, which is more likely to happen now that Justin Trudeau's Liberals have been re-elected. So let's just recap here. CBC is not pulling in advertisers. It's not getting audiences. It's immune from some of the big trends that have been pushing other media outlets towards massive layoffs. And we're still supposed to feel sorry for CBC. Now listen, I feel for people that work in that aren't ideologues, that work for the organization just because that was the job that they had available. But I'm sorry, there is no argument in this day and age for Canadian taxpayers to be subsidizing an outlet they don't want that is cannibalizing operations that they do want that are existing in Canada in private sector media. This is just plain wrong. It's also why it's never been more important to support independent voices in media, of which True North is one. We can't do the work that we do without you, because we aren't getting the $1.3 billion CBC is. We aren't getting the $600 million media bailout fund that other media organizations in Canada are getting. The only way we survive is by investment from the people who like what we do, which is the way it's supposed to work, by the way. Who decided somewhere along the way that you should have to pay for something you don't want? But that comes with a call to action. If you like what we're doing and think it's important to break through what CBC is doing that the stats say you aren't paying attention to, please do chip in a few dollars. You can join my Heritage Club or make a one-time contribution. Either way, we appreciate it. For True North, I'm Andrew Lawton.